Hello, hello, everyone. Thanks for dropping in. This is Healing Body, Mind, and Soul, and I'm your host, Ariel Asher. Today, I have the honor and privilege to be with Dr. Debi Silber, and I am so excited. She speaks about betrayal, and who out there hasn't been sometime betrayed? But even today, when I was prepping for this interview, I got even more intrigued about this betrayal. What is happening? Now, we are having some juicy conversations, so I'm going to turn it over to Debi here. Debi, what is up with betrayal?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Yep, it's one of those things. Unfortunately, we've been through it, whether it's a family member, a partner, a friend, a coworker, and self. Self-betrayal is huge. And when we know we're not crazy, we're not alone, we can heal from all of it, then it's really worth looking into because there's a lot that we take so personally, but a lot we can learn from.
Mm, mm. And you know what I find so interesting a lot now, I do somatic work in the body, right? So I talk a lot about releasing fear and I call it the F bag: fear, betrayal, anger, grief, like that gooky stuff, the negative emotions, the issues in the tissues. Can you please tell me what makes betrayal its own sort of special little beast?
I'm so glad you do this work because here's why. So often when people are betrayed, they feel the only option is talk therapy. And first of all, the wrong type of talk therapist, let's just say, if they're not highly skilled in betrayal, it does more harm than good. And you're right. The issues are in the tissues. This needs body-based therapy in addition to talk therapy and the right kind of support. And, there's a bunch of things we do need. But betrayal is so different because that was actually one of the things that I did a study on betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? Of course, you don't go into a PhD study on betrayal unless you have to. And that was because of a horrible family betrayal I had. And then a few years later, my husband, devastated, blindsided, shocked, like anybody who's been through it. So got him out of the house and I said, that's it. Now it's my turn. 4 kids, 6 dogs, thriving business. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off, but here I go. And we made 3 groundbreaking discoveries. And one of them, this is in response to your question, I had been through death of a loved one. I'd been through disease, but I was like, you know what? Betrayal feels different for me. I didn't want to assume. So I asked all my study participants, I said, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said it's so different. Here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self has to be rebuilt. Confidence, worthiness, belonging, rejection, abandonment, trust. So it needed, that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called post-betrayal transformation. Like, for example, you lose a loved one, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. You don't necessarily take it personally, right? Betrayal is personal. So that was one of a big distinction. And that was actually one of the discoveries.
Mm-hmm. I love that because I think to really get over and really process stuff, you need to give it a name. And betrayal is its own beast, as you're saying. It's different. It's an attack, not just an event, right?
You're so right. And that's the thing. And, we even found, this was another one of the discoveries, there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. We have a quiz on our site to see to what extent people are struggling. We've had easily 20,000 people take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz. What's so interesting is there's a question that reads, is there anything else you'd like to share? Besides reading about the physical, the mental, the emotional symptoms left in the wake of this type of crisis, people write things like, my betrayal happened 40 years ago. I could still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust again. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. I feel gutted. So we know, we've heard time heals all wounds, not when it comes to betrayal.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Different thing.
Mm, mm. Now, of course, like my brain is going in like a million different directions that I can take this. This is so juicy. This is so juicy for me. And I'm wondering how how do you deal with a betrayal like of a child? Like, you know, at formative years, how do you deal with or a perceived betrayal, right? Because you know, how do you deal with that? And I'm just wondering for mental health, how the psyche recovers from something like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, we found that the way it works is the l- when we involve the heart, it's a whole other game. And it really is. And the closer we are, the more we depend and the more we trust someone, the deeper the betrayal. So for example, let's say a child who's completely dependent on their parent, and then the parent does something horrible. That's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your coworker taking credit for your idea. So still
Mm,
a betrayal, different magnitude. So with a parent-child relationship, it's a lot to heal from because of that attachment. And also, let's say it's the child, right, who has learned a set of craziness from their parent. Then they go into their adult life, and those are the relationships they choose, not because it's good, because it's so familiar. So if they don't untangle that and learn what's going on, they wonder, what the heck is it? I'm always in these abusive relationships. I'm always in these relationships where I'm betrayed, where I'm not treated well. I have such a low sense of worth and all of these things. And look what they learned. How can they help it? So
right, right. Well, that goes back to self-care or healing the self, right? Healing the self, making sure that you're harmonious, because then you attract harmonious situations. I'm over exaggerating, but trying to just make the point there.
well,
Super juicy, super fascinating, Dr. Debbie. I love
uh,
it.
well, and it's really true what you said, because there's actually, this ties in with the third discovery. There's we found that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many of us do, if we're going to fully heal from the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to that full and complete healing state of post-betrayal transformation, we will go through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is now we even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Why is that good? Because now healing is predictable. If people are willing to do those things in each stage, they will predictably move. But here's what happens. When you say the self-care, that is so common to one particular stage, and it's the stage we get the most stuck in, and most of us remain there for life. So I can see someone, and I'm happy to go through the stages, but I can see someone, 20 years out, and they have habits and behaviors they created because of that behavior, because of their betrayal, that kept them stuck, safe, small, and that's where they stay.
Wow. Wow. So I bet that a lot of people's brains are percolating. My brains are percolating about my own clients and some of the life situations and conversations that I'm overhearing and involved in these days. It's fascinating, fascinating stuff. If anybody is figuring out that, oh my goodness, maybe I am not healed from betrayal, what should they do? How can they get themselves in front of your quiz, and how can they get themselves in these steps so that they can get empowered quickly, Dr. Debi?
Well, I write the steps are all laid out in Trust Again, my book, Trust Again, Overcoming Betrayal, Regaining Health, Confidence, and Happiness.
Mm.
But best thing to do is take the quiz to see to what extent you're struggling. You can just find that at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com/quiz.
The PBT Institute. All right. That is super great. Dr. Debbie, so tell us a little bit about your own story, about what is driving you and why you feel so passionate about overcoming betrayal and helping people from this stuck point.
Yeah, having been through my own traumas, I was in ICU for 11 days. It's a miracle I'm alive. I've been through death of a loved one. And then the betrayal of my family and then my husband. I mean, it was the betrayal of my husband. I said, if I can heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me. And one of the things that I learned, it was so interesting because we learn, and this is what we teach within the PBT Institute. How do you know if it's safe and in your best interest just to heal yourself and move on? And that's what I did with my family. It simply wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or how do you know if it's safe and in your best interest, if you're willing, if you want to, if the situation lends itself to rebuild something entirely new with the person who hurt you? That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, we married each other again as two totally different people. So, it's the kind of thing, having studied it at this level, having been through different types of betrayals, coming out of it with such awareness, such insight. How do you not share that with anybody who's willing to listen? And so we just, within the PBT Institute, I mean, that's what we do. We have our certified coaches, and they move people through the 5 stages, and the right type of support and the right type of community that's there to lift and inspire, and our programs, which literally walk you through the stages. And it's just it's just an amazing, it feels so good to know that it's I look at betrayal as one of the worst things that can happen to us, right? But this is the person we trusted the most. And when the person we trust the most proves untrustworthy, who do we trust? When the ones we run to when other people are causing harm are the ones causing harm, where do we go? It's such a shock to the body and mind. So, if we know there's a place to go, that makes me hop out of bed every morning.
Yes, I can see why. Oh, I know. I just got an insight of what I wanted to ask next. When you were talking about what everybody would say if there's anything else that they want to add, and you were talking about how people were unwilling to let go of something, and that struck me, first of all, the unwilling part. Like, of course, those poor people, right? They need help. They're unwilling to even let go, and they're consciously choosing to stay stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And not rebuilding that trust. I was wondering if you noticed, because I'm a body worker and energy worker, if you noticed somatically, or was there any consistency where betrayal shows up in physiologically?
Absolutely. And I can read some stats from the quiz that we see, the physical.
Oh my gosh,
symptoms.
great.
But it was interesting too, just to your point, there were 3 groups in the study who did not heal. Now, I went into the research thinking, you're not supposed to assume anything, but I was new at this. And I said, the ones who've been the hardest hit would grow the least because they had the most to overcome. That was my assumption. I was dead wrong. That had nothing to do with it. Really? What I found was the willingness. As long as they were willing, they just put their heads down and said, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I am just not picking my head up till I'm out the other side of this. They blew the doors off of some of the others. So the 3 groups who didn't heal. The first group was the group that refused to accept their betrayal. They were stuck. They were hanging on to their story for dear life. And so that's where they stayed. At the end of the day, they had their story. The second group was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. So they were using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, because this was painful to feel and face. Now, it may have made the day a bit easier to get through, but they stayed stuck, not without a price. And the third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether it was out of religious reasons, a big one, financial reasons, fear, or just, fear, not wanting to break up a family, whatever it was, this group didn't heal either. And I saw 2 things with this group. This was the group where I only saw a further deterioration of the relationship. And 2, this group by far was the most physically sick. Your broken heart can't handle that. But I'm happy to read you some of the stats from the quiz if you'd like.
Sure, real quick. We've got a little bit of time, Dr. Debbie. Let's hear it. I bet the
So,
audience really is excited. I'm
yeah,
excited, so.
so this is out of figure 19,000 people who've taken the post-betrayal syndrome quiz.
Hmm.
Okay, so 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. I mean, that's exhausting, right? 94% deal with painful triggers. Now, here's the most common physical symptoms to answer your question. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% extreme fatigue. 47% have weight changes. Maybe they can't hold food down in the very beginning, and then they use food for comfort later on. And 45% have digestive issues, anything from constipation, diarrhea, Crohn's, IBS, you name it. That's just the physical. The mental, 78% are overwhelmed, 70% walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So just take an inability to concentrate and you can't sleep, right? I mean, just right there. And you're supposed to go to work, raise your kids and everything else. That's not even the emotional ones. 88% sadness, 83% anger. Those two together are exhausting. 82% are hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Here's why I wrote the book Trust again. Ready? 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Mm. Mm. Those numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
And God bless you, Dr. Debbie, for keeping those numbers so that we can keep abreast of what's going on. This is such important work. This is amazing. I am so glad that you are bringing this to the forefront for people, because if they're holding on to that, they're holding on to all of that energy. When you were talking about it, I see them holding on to just like the F bag, right? The black, gooey, yucky, pussy, horrible, yucky stuff, and not being able to be fully present in their lives.
Yes, exactly. And that's why there are repeat betrayals. I could spot an unhealed betrayal from a mile away. We see it in health, in work, in relationships. For example, I'll see it in relationships in one of two ways. The first way is a repeat betrayal. When I see a repeat betrayal, I know it's an unhealed betrayal because we keep getting opportunities to learn a very profound lesson. Maybe it's that you are worthy, deserving, lovable, that you need better boundaries in place, right? Until and unless we understand that, we'll keep getting opportunities in the form of people to show us that. That's not saying it's our fault that we're betrayed at all. We keep getting opportunities, though, to learn this profound lesson. The second way is I see people who put the big wall up. No, been there, done that, not doing that again. And they think it's coming from a place of strength, keeping everybody at bay. No, it's coming from a place of fear.
Right.
We also see it. People go to the most amazing health experts to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. At the root of it is an unhealed betrayal. And we see it at work. People, they want to be a team player. They want to collaborate, but they're terrified. The person they trusted the most proved untrustworthy. Or they want to ask for that raise or promotion, but their confidence was shattered in the betrayal. So they don't have the confidence to ask. It shows up everywhere.
This is wonderful stuff. Super juicy. You are such a gift to the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie. I'm so happy that you're helping everybody with these tools. Now, give us one more time. I know you've already told us, but tell us one more time where everybody can get the quiz and get on your list so that they can get help right away with healing these deep betrayals in their life.
Thank you. It's just go to the PBT as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com/quiz.
Super fantastic. Well, Dr. Debi, I feel full. I feel excited. I feel blessed to have you as a guest today on Healing Body, Mind, and Soul. I love what you're up to. I love your mission. And I hope that our listeners have gotten a nugget. And if you need any assistance moving through a betrayal in your life, and Dr. Debi got me thinking, everybody's got some stuff. Go unpack the adjectives in the past. I bet there's an English teacher somewhere that that you need to fire. All right, okay. So thank you everybody for leaning in, for joining us today, for choosing yourself first. And until next time, happy healing.